периода российская экономика не просто полностью восстановилась, но и обеспечивает качественные структурные изменения, что чрезвычайно важно, а может быть вообще является самым главным результатом нашей работы в сфере экономики за последние 2-3 года. Развивается технологический, производственный, логистический потенциал России, укрепляются связи с перспективными партнерами. В прошлом году валовый внутренний продукт России вырос на 3,6%. Это хорошо известно. А за январь-октябрь текущего года он увеличился на 4,1%. Причем главным образом рост сосредоточен в обрабатывающих отраслях производства, в секторах с высокой добавленной стоимостью. Так, за 10 месяцев наша обрабатывающая промышленность прибавила более 8%, точнее 8,1%. В том числе опережающие темпы демонстрируют автопром и машиностроение. Высокотехнологичные секторы с высокой добавленной стоимостью и квалифицированными рабочими местами увеличивается и приток специалистов. Так, в сентябре количество занятых в IT-сфере выросло на 8,1% по сравнению с предыдущим годом. В обрабатывающей промышленности на почти 4%, на 3,9%. О структурных изменениях на рынке труда говорит снижение безработицы в регионах, где она была традиционно высока, а также увеличение занятости среди молодежи до 25 лет. Но мы знаем, что молодежная безработица – это проблема в очень многих странах мира. У нас тоже такая проблема существует, или, точнее сказать, уже существовала. Здесь уровень безработицы ниже 9%, хотя в определенное время, совсем недавно, он зашкаливал за 20-25% в некоторых регионах страны. В целом в России рекордно низкий уровень безработицы, всего 2,3%. На фоне большинства ведущих экономик мира и развивающихся стран этот показатель является минимальным. Для примера, во многих государствах Европы он составляет 7% и выше, а у нас, повторю, чуть больше 2%. Ну, так, для сравнения, чтобы не было голословным, в Италии 7,6%, во Франции 7,3%, в Канаде поменьше 5,4%, в Греции 11%, в Бразилии 8%, в Швеции 7,6%. Рост экономики позитивно отражается на бюджетной системе. За январь-октябрь текущего года профицит консолидированного бюджета страны и внебюджетных фондов оказался около 2,5 триллионов рублей. При этом расходы, вот я хочу это подчеркнуть, думаю, что в этом зале люди понимают, о чем я говорю, расходы составили менее 35% ВВП, что соответствует уровню 2021 года. Это говорит о том, что правительство и Центральный банк проводят очень сбалансированную политику. То есть, с учетом объективно возросших трат по отдельным статьям, мы в целом не раздуваем государственные расходы, а работаем над повышением их эффективности. Реализуем ответственный подход в бюджетной сфере. Наша задача закрепиться на траектории долгосрочного, устойчивого экономического роста, обеспечить качественную инвестиционную динамику в реальном секторе за счет модернизации производств и повышения производительности труда. Это генеральная, разумеется, линия нашего развития. При этом, разумеется, важно избежать перекосов ключевых макроэкономических параметров и избежать разбалансировки отдельных отраслей. В том числе, конечно, необходимо сдерживать инфляцию. Пока она находится, вы знаете наверняка, на достаточно высоком уровне, в том числе по сравнению с теми странами, о которых я уже упоминал, у нас это 8,8% в годовом выражении. Чтобы добиться здесь позитивных результатов, необходимы скоординированные совместные действия правительства и Банка России. Подчеркну, это не призыв, не пожелание, а, думаю, прямое руководство к действию. Да, собственно, коллеги из ЦБ и из правительства это прекрасно понимают, и координация имеет место Нужно правильно, разумеется, с умом использовать все инструменты экономической политики в борьбе с инфляцией. Не допускать при этом структурных перегибов, включая риски увеличения разрывов доходов граждан и сокращения доходной базы регионов России. Уже говорил, магистральный ответ на инфляционный вызов, безусловно, именно основной магистральный ответ заключается в увеличении предложения товаров и услуг на рынке, чтобы их объем отвечал внутреннему спросу как со стороны граждан, так и бизнеса, который планирует модернизацию и расширение своего производства, расширение мощности, вкладывается в стройку, в покупку оборудования, в проекты развития. В этой связи прошу правительство четче расставить приоритеты в мерах поддержки, которые оказываются отраслям из федерального бюджета, а также продолжить донастройку нормативной базы, снимать избыточные административные барьеры для работы бизнеса. Все эти механизмы должны в первую очередь работать на расширение выпуска продукции, на открытие производств, на укрепление технологического суверенитета России. Да, нужно учитывать, что мы действуем в объективных условиях сдерживания инфляции, реализуем жесткие подходы к бюджетной политике и должны соответствующим образом настраивать кредитную политику. Отмечу вместе с тем, что начиная с августа портфель розничных кредитов практически перестал расти. В свою очередь в сегменте корпоративных кредитов рост продолжается. Думаю, здесь в этой аудитории не нужно объяснять, что в целом это на сегодняшнем этапе, в общем, тот результат, к которому мы и стремимся, в том числе и на путях сдерживания инфляции. Корпоративные кредиты все-таки растут. Это значит, что инвестиционные планы компаний реализуются, ну а в сегменте розничных кредитов, конечно, наблюдается определенное снижение, ну, собственно говоря, финансовые и экономические власти к этому и стремились. Прошу коллег, безусловно, отслеживать всю динамику, не допускать резких колебаний и снижения кредитного портфеля банковской системы, а также обеспечивать такую его структуру, то есть сроки отрасли и сектора экономики, куда привлекаются кредиты, чтобы она позволяла решать стратегические задачи, достигать национальных целей развития. В том числе важно обратить внимание на долговую нагрузку компаний с государственным участием. Мы в последнее время с коллегами об этом постоянно говорим. Она в последнее время заметно увеличилась. Это нагрузка. Конечно, здесь надо учитывать масштабные инвестиционные программы госкорпораций, а также социальные функции, которые они выполняют. Не буду здесь вдаваться в детали. Коллеги, российские коллеги прекрасно понимают, о чем я сейчас говорю. Уже поручил правительству совместно с Банком России принять решение по управлению кредитным портфелем компаний с госучастием, так, чтобы не допускать здесь чрезмерной долговой нагрузки и дисбаланса на рынке корпоративного кредитования в целом, в ущерб остальным отраслям или компаниям и предприятиям. Напомню, что для многих малых и средних компаний, которые играют все более заметную роль в экономике, доступность кредитов, заемных средств – это ключевой фактор инвестиционной активности. А здесь у нас поставлена конкретная задача: к 2030 году инвестиции должны прибавить 60% в реальном выражении к уровню 2020 года. С учетом всех трудностей, вложения в основной капитал российского бизнеса растут третий год подряд, несмотря на все проблемы, которые у нас возникают или которые нам пытаются создать извне. Приведу несколько цифр. В 2022 году прирост инвестиций составил 6,7%, в 2023 году уже 9,8%, а за 9 месяцев текущего года темпы сопоставимые, плюс 8,6%. Чтобы поддержать стремление бизнеса вкладываться в развитие, расширять мощности, создавать рабочие места, мы, безусловно, продолжим укреплять рынок капитала. Будем поддерживать выход компаний на биржу со своими ценными бумагами. к концу десятилетия капитализация российского фондового рынка должна увеличиться примерно вдвое и составить 2/3 валового внутреннего продукта. Отмечу, что только в текущем году в России состоялось 19 первичных и вторичных размещений акций. Эмитенты смогли привлечь 102 миллиарда рублей. Результат вполне удовлетворительный, хороший, но в масштабах всей страны небольшой. Повторю, российский рынок капитала должен активнее участвовать в финансировании проектов развития и структурных изменений нашей экономики. Правительству совместно с Центральным банком необходимо подготовить пакет дополнительных стимулирующих мер для эмитентов акций, чтобы выход на фондовый рынок стал для них более выгодным и интересным. В том числе нужно повысить спрос на ценные бумаги, обеспечить эффективную защиту прав инвесторов и необходимую информационную прозрачность компании. Напомню в этой связи, что поручения на этот счет уже давались, нужно активизировать, усилить работу по этим направлениям. Уважаемые коллеги, на что хотел бы еще обратить внимание. Сегодня на рынок акций выходят преимущественно небольшие компании, тогда как многие крупные организации, лидеры в своих отраслях, на фондовом рынке не представлены до сих пор. Это значит, меры поддержки эмитентов должны учитывать как запросы малого бизнеса в перспективных стартапов, так и стимулировать крупный бизнес к размещению своих акций. Например, для них можно было бы увязать получение субсидий от государства или льготных кредитов с выходом на биржу. Мне кажется, что это вполне справедливо. Конечно же, мы приглашаем инвесторов и из дружественных стран на наш фондовый рынок. Как уже не раз говорил, Россия – это часть глобальной экономики, и мы приветствуем встречные потоки капитала. Вместе с тем, мы делаем акцент именно на внутренние источники финансирования, чтобы наши граждане, розничные инвесторы имели возможность вложить свои средства и заработать внутри страны. А такие вложения, их доходность были бы не менее привлекательны, чем открытие банковских депозитов. Сегодня, по оценкам экспертов, свыше 32 миллионов граждан России проявляют интерес к покупке ценных бумаг. Общий объем их активов превышает 9 триллионов рублей. За последние несколько лет были приняты важные решения, чтобы обеспечить приток на рынок так называемых длинных денег, расширить набор соответствующих инструментов. Так, в этом году запущена программа поддержки добровольных долгосрочных сбережений граждан. Взносы на них застрахованы и софинансируются государством, а на внесенные средства можно получить налоговый вычет. По состоянию на 22 ноября в программе долгосрочных сбережений приняли участие свыше 2 миллионов 100 тысяч вкладчиков. Привлечено 145 миллиардов рублей. Напомню, что здесь поставлена более амбициозная цель. В 2026 году сумма привлеченных средств в рамках программы должна превысить 1% ВВП, то есть составить не менее 2 триллионов 300 миллиардов рублей. И в дальнейшем она должна неуклонно расти. Добавлю, что для накопления средств граждан в текущем году появились так называемые индивидуальные инвестиционные счета третьего типа. С их помощью можно вкладывать в долг, совершать операции на фондовом рынке и при этом получать налоговые льготы. Предлагаю дополнить функционал этого инструмента, сделать так, чтобы инвестор мог выбрать счет для зачисления дивидендов по акциям, учтенным на индивидуальных инвест-счетах. То есть мог использовать полученный доход по своему усмотрению и, что важно, в любое время. Безусловно, такой инструмент регулирования повысит интерес потенциальных инвесторов к этой работе совместно с государством в данном случае. Также отмечу, что с 1 января 2025 года будет запущено долевое страхование жизни граждан. По сути, здесь совмещаются принцип классического страхования и инвестирования. когда гражданин одновременно вкладывает средства в активы, в акции, получает от них доход и при этом страхует свою жизнь и здоровье. Как мы и договаривались, нужно гарантировать возврат этих средств, предусмотреть их государственное страхование на сумму 2 миллиона 800 тысяч рублей. Кроме того, нужно предложить меры налогового стимулирования, прежде всего налоговые вычеты на внесенные суммы, соответствующие федеральные законы, я прошу подготовить и принять в ближайшее время. Добавлю, есть предложение создать такой финансовый механизм, который станет настоящим семейным инструментом сбережений, позволит получать налоговый вычет всем работающим членам семьи. Соответственно, размер средств, подпадающих под такой вычет, должен увеличиваться как минимум до 1 миллиона рублей в год. И прошу правительство вместе с Банком России определить параметры этого механизма поддержки семей и реализовать эти решения. Уважаемые коллеги, российская банковская система, фондовый рынок динамично развиваются на базе современных технологий. Примерно 3/4 наших взрослых граждан используют мобильные телефоны. Интернет для перевода средств с банковских счетов для различных финансовых сервисов. Более 80% расчетов за товары и услуги в нашей экономике проводятся в безналичной форме. При этом Банк России поэтапно внедряет цифровой рубль. В рамках пилотного проекта отработано пополнение средств и переводы цифровых рублей между физическими и юридическими лицами. Проект уже охватывает свыше 9 тысяч граждан и 1200 компаний. Их число продолжает расти. Как и договаривались, со следующего года расчеты с помощью цифрового рубля должны использовать.
Ruble must be used in the system of federal budget, and from the 1st of July 2025, we'll have this opportunity all over the country. I'll also say I'll dwell on the use of ruble on international settlements. We are continuing creating an infrastructure that would make such operations more convenient for business and will reduce costs. We are going to introduce experimental legal regime so that banks could fine-tune the ways for remote identification of clients without creating risks for anti-money laundering legislation, of course. Moreover, we will use a flexible approach for tax registration or for non-residents. This is what already done by our banks when they open accounts for such companies. And I ask the government to speed up the preparation of corresponding documents and the State Duma to ensure their adoption in the nearest months. I'll point out that the level of digitalization of financial services in Russia exceeds the level all over the world. And it confirms the high technological level of this sphere of national economy. So it's being forward-looking, and its ability to set big goals, and it means that it's being proactive. According to experts, one of the main long-term factors of global growth will be the introduction of national digital infrastructure in financial sector. In other jurisdictions like the EU, Australia and Singapore, they are exploring just separate elements of this infrastructure. And if we're speaking about Russia, we have already established it and all the elements are working successfully. It's not just a big achievement of our developers and experts. It is also a competitive advantage of national economy and powerful leverage for its development in the modern world. The leadership of Russia in financial technologies allow us to flexibly establish relations with foreign partners and to promote integration projects to benefit from aligning economic potentials of our countries. I'm also speaking about the work on the investment platform that we are implementing with our colleagues in BRICS. We're starting to implement this work. And all our colleagues have agreed that it is very interesting and useful work for everyone that has good prospects. It will be an instrument to support our economies, to ensure financial resources for the countries of the Global South and East. The advanced development of information technologies that is being demonstrated by Russia Our cutting-edge solutions in financial sphere will be a major contribution to the development of this platform, the key of its success, and I'm sure that we'll achieve it. It is necessary to develop international business cooperation, to build up mutual capital investments, and to establish new supply chains. In this regard, I would like to speak about investment climate in Russia. As you know, the World Bank is no longer present in our country, and it means that it cannot evaluate national business environment. But other objective structures can do that. We have the necessary intellectual potential for that. This year, the Agency for Strategic Initiatives evaluated the business climate in Russia and compared the received results with other countries. The agency used the same approach as the World Bank in its new rating. They took into account more than 800 criteria, from opening enterprises to solving problems of insolvency. And the investigation showed that Russia is one of the global leaders of investment climate rating. At the same time, if we're speaking about legal framework and the quality of public services, Russia has outperformed all the countries. If we're speaking about registration of enterprises and property management, we are on the second place. Yes, we need to apply additional efforts in some spheres. We understand it and we see it. The federal government, regions and business community will apply these efforts, and the government is always working together with the community. I'm speaking about the development of labor relations, facilitating international trade, the rules of international trade, connecting to engineering infrastructure, and we have done a lot, but there is work to do. We need to pay attention to certain spheres. And I'm sure that the colleagues will organize systemic work with business, and they will move forward significantly in the nearest future. Distinguished friends, Russia unites efforts of the state, society, and business in strengthening economic sovereignty, in ensuring technological leadership of our country, in developing sustainable, nationally oriented banking system and strong stock market. Of course, we invite foreign partners from all the countries that are interested in such cooperation. Without any doubt, such aspirations will be supported at all the levels of public governance of the Russian Federation. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all the best.
For taking again part in this forum. This is the 15th intervention at our 15th forum. But since this is almost an anniversary for us, it's the 15th forum, and the audience has changed over the years, I would like to take a couple of minutes to share with the audience the history of this forum and the history of your participation. It happened way back in 2009, in the midst of the global financial crisis, which was initiated in the United States. As we know, all the dark things come from there. And I talked with Joseph Ackerman, one of the most distinguished investment bankers of Europe, the head of Deutsche Bank, who said, look, Andrei, do tell Mr. Putin that a great country cannot exist without a strong investment bank. So I came back to Moscow and I told Mr. Putin, look, we have this great country. We don't have a great investment bank. And Mr. Putin was very quick to respond, and he asked, how can we help? Now, just for you to understand, at the investment market back then, we had foreign banks playing key roles. Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. There were virtually no Russian investment banks. There were some boutique banks, and mostly arranged by foreigners, foreign citizens. I'm referring to Renaissance and others. And they all held various fora for investors. And I said, look, can we invite you to speak at our forum, so that you don't speak anywhere else? So, Mr. Putin came to us in 2009, 2010, 2011. Then he was elected as president, and we were very concerned that he would not come as president, but he did. And, he contributed a lot to this forum. This is perhaps the most important investment forum that stirs interest and attention not only on the part of investors and financiers in this country, but globally too. And here we have more than 400 representatives from different countries. Some 35 countries are represented. Of course, the audience mix has changed dramatically, but I'm confident that Western investors also monitor very closely what we do, and they listen very carefully what Mr. Putin has to say. So we thanked Mr. Ackerman, and in fact, we hijacked his entire staff, more than 100 people. He was pretty concerned at first, but then he took a more moderate approach, and he said that, look, I'm happy that I have contributed to the development of the investment banking in Russia. Indeed, since then, this forum has occupied the leading positions in Russia, and our bank has also solidified its position in the Russian markets. Once again, this forum is 15 years old, and the presentation by Vladimir Putin has always been the keynote speech, and what we treasure most of all is the open dialogue that the President holds with the audience. And the participants normally say, no, look, it's impossible in our countries when the leader of our country would spend an hour entertaining questions from the audience. So that's what we're going to do now, a Q&A session. And Vladimir Putin is ready to take your questions, but we are only limited in terms of time. So please be brief, be succinct, introduce yourselves, state your country, your sector, and I hope that Mr. Putin will be able to and happy to entertain any of your questions. Sector 7, please. Go ahead. You are number 7? Are we asking something? No, that's okay. Okay, number 4, number 7. The bold one. Number 4.
I have already said it at last forum, and I use any opportunity to repeat that we never expelled anyone or ousted anyone from our market. It will not be a big secret to say that despite the political pressure, many of the partners, including from Western Europe and the United States, have stayed, chose to stay. Part of these companies continue working as they did. Approximately half of them. Another part have transferred the management to entities and individuals that they control, and only a quarter left, and some of them are still leaving the Russian economy, including major, biggest German companies. I would not say that because of the decoupling of ties with Russia, only because of decoupling ties of Russia, the German economy is going through hard times, but actually this breakup of ties plays a significant role in the worsening situation. It's not only because the Germans and other Europeans cannot now receive stable supplies of Russian energy at affordable prices, although it is very important, but also there are other factors coming into play. They cannot sell their goods at our market and supply spare parts to the enterprises and manufacturing sites established by European and foreign investors in this country. They can no longer use logistical routes that were profit-making and lucrative. They cannot use the European currency, the euro, for settlements, while using euro as a reserve currency also brought out a lot of gains for the European economy. The result, the outcome is known. Entire companies are closing down in Europe. Glass manufacturing, chemicals, fertilizers manufacturing, agriculture. All these sectors have been sustaining considerable losses because they are now deprived of the Russian market. So the European and the German agriculture has been stripped of not only our energy, like gas is a very important feedstock for fertilizers, but they don't have the supply of our fertilizers at all, and they close down, and the metallurgy also. And it's a knock-on effect. The automobile industry and others. This year, the growth of the Eurozone economy will be around 1%, according to our and international assessments, 1 point something, while the growth of the Russian economy last year was at 3.6%, and this year it's going to be at around 3.9 or even 4%. With respect to the processing sectors in Germany, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, the fall in processing sectors will be 4.6%, the decline, and Russia will have the growth of 4.4%, while the processing industries here will grow by 8.1%. So, and besides, the Americans ban you to use to make use of the Russian market and capitalize on our cheap resources, while in the United States they have been creating conditions favorable for European and German investors. This is, to put it mildly, not a good model of allied behavior. Well, the Germans know that without me. I will not dig into details. Shall we create the conditions for those wishing to come back? We will not going to create a special set of conditions. We never dislodged anyone or ousted anyone. Our doors are open. The issue is different. The point is that over the past 2 years, many of the niches that became free because of the departure of the European partners are now being taken actively by companies from other countries, and at a whopping very rapid pace, and we never expected that. The import substitution is in progress, is ongoing with Russian brands. The number of these brands has increased manyfold. So just simply coming back and occupying the previously abandoned niches would be a difficult thing to do, but at the same time, we will not place any obstacles, any special obstacles for that. It's not about us, it's about the political decisions made on the level of the European Commission and in separate member states, including Germany. It's not about us, it's about you. While I've been talking, I remembered one thing. When I lived and worked in Germany, a friend of mine, a pal of mine, told me a story. I'm not sure whether he's watching me. I ain't seen him for 30 years. I'm not sure what he's about. So he walked around Berlin. It was not a leisure activity, but he was on a mission, so to say. So he approached the bank of the Spree River, and he saw a German old man fishing. He asked him, "So, is your fishing okay? Do you have a lot of catch?" "No." There was a pause, and the pal of mine asked why. Another pause followed, and the German fisherman said, "It's the wind from the east." Coming from the east, and my pal responded, all the dirt, all the problems, all the filth comes from east. And the German fisherman spared a minute to think it over, and then he asked, "Are you a Pole?" My pal said, No, I'm not, I'm worse." And the German fisherman rose his eyebrows, looked blankly, and never said a thing. So why am I quoting this story? Now, everything coming from the west, from the east, is better from what comes from the west. Look at the conditions established by your traditional partners in business environment. But our doors keep being open. With Germany for decades, we have had good relations. We had a great deal of mutual understanding, and the distinctive characteristic of German investors and investments was that they did not seek rapid gains, rapid profits. They wanted to play long term, and now Volkswagen has a lot of problems. Why have they left this market? They could have worked here, and they could have sold their cars here, and they would have supplied spare parts and components, getting wonderful revenue. We never pursued any non-market regulation measures, although you cannot call some non-market things a regulation. We never created any obstacles for our German friends, such as those pursued in other places like environmental investigations and other things. Now you can blame Volkswagen managers on anything, but probably one should look at one's own mistakes. I'm not talking about the regulators on the governmental level making decisions, but now they blame the managers, the management, and the employees of Volkswagen that are on strike in droves, and their plants are closing down and people are fired, thousands of them. So for this not to happen, one should not be guided by political motives in economic decisions. And the main point I want to emphasize, You represent the Federal Republic of Germany. Why are you asking your question in English? Speak German. The main thing is the level of sovereignty. So you'd better speak German. We don't have the German interpretation. Oh, come on. Don't deceive me. You wanted to add something. No, you also wanted to say something else. Marcus, give him a mic, please. This German gentleman wants to comment on upon something, to provide his feedback.
You know, as they would say, it's impossible to interpret.
Has just said that he was warned that there is no German interpreter available now. Now he responded that it's not about an interpreter. The main thing is sovereignty. You know, I was at Mr. Schroeder's place at his birthday party in Hanover, and it was a modest party, but a very decent one. Everybody spoke English, and even the girls' choir in Hanover performed in English. What a shame. So this is the point. This sovereignty level should be at your heart. So it starts from there. I would not like to start this discussion right now. We are to discuss economic matters here. Okay.
Okay, Sector 1, please. Next question.
You know, everything that has been happening in security and politics has brought about the structural changes in relations witnessed nowadays in the world. When I hear that Russia is pivoting to the east or to the south, we have not been pivoting to the south or east, no. We've long since the noughties, bearing in mind the global development trends, we have been gradually stepping up our presence there. We've been doing that for quite a long while. Our relations with China have been developing, irrespective of what, for instance, has been happening in Ukraine. Long before that, China became our biggest economic partner. Now we have said that Russia will maintain relations and ties with big economies, but what happens to if a normalization with the global West takes place, although the West is though the global West is inexistent, its share in global GDP has been shrinking constantly, but the share of global South and the East keeps increasing. And according to the IMF and the World Bank data, the pace of growth of emerging and developing economies is 2 times higher than that of what we call developed countries. A twofold difference. And some of the economies have been growing at a stunning rate. Look at Ethiopia. Over the past 10 years, they have grown by 118 or 120%. It's phenomenal. It's unique. Bangladesh, 80-something% of growth. And many other economies in the global South and East have been growing similarly on similar levels. So we naturally look to those directions and places where we see a lot of growth and where we see a greater number of our prospective partners that pay no heed to the invectives from aside. And with respect to threats to the third countries cooperating with us, people from whom those threats emanate have been trained in Cambridge and Oxford. They have good education and a good background, but they should be smart and clever. But from judging by what they've been doing, I have doubts, or probably they might be well educated and clever and smart, but something prevents them from responding expeditiously to what has been happening globally. So probably this is snobbery, a haughty attitude. They believe that they can do anything, but the world is changing, and the world is changing, and they cannot do whatever they want. So with their action, they have been adding pace to the multipolar world creation, which has become inevitable. More and more countries and international affairs and economic actors are aware that looking at the powerful markets with a high technological level is important, but partnering with these is insufficient at this point. So something more is needed. So I hope that at a certain point of time we normalize our relations with our Western partners, because first and foremost because they will be interested in that, and we also have interest in that. So despite this possible and I hope inevitable process of normalization, a big deal, a big part of our volume with our today's friendly partners and countries will be in place, because it is inevitable.
Thank you very much indeed. Who goes next? Sector 7. Right, please be more proactive. Naila Nekrabova, member of the Board of Azerbaijan. Mr. President, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for being with us. Now, how do you see prospects for using the potential of the BRICS countries to create a joint or common digital infrastructure? Do you think it would be possible to come up with a common international digital payments system in this context? I wonder if independent developers who would like to be part of this project could count on your support. Thank you very much.
This is a very interesting topic and very important. We try to pay attention to it with our colleagues from BRICS, not just because someone is creating problems for us. They are serious and they impede our activities if we're speaking about settlements. However, the main thing is that the world economy is developing. Our relations are developing. I was answering to a question of your colleague, and I've just said that we are developing relations with big countries, big economies. The number of partners increases, and everyone wants secure ways of settlements and economic relations. Everyone wants to use modern ways to implement settlements, to reduce costs, to make it more reliable, to make the international system more reliable. This means the use of modern technologies, digital technologies. This is what we are going to do without any doubt. We are talking not only about the creation of digital settlement systems. In the context of BRICS, we proposed to our partners, and they supported it in general, to create a digital investment platform. And settlements in digital currencies will be part of it. What is the way that we are following? We are going to create a working group on the basis of BRICS Development Bank. We are currently creating it. We spoke about this in Kazan with representatives from China, from India, Brazil, with all the partners. And everyone agrees. We want to create a digital platform that would allow us to invest into promising, growing markets of South Asia and Africa. And it will be a reliable way of investment that would be protected from inflation, and that will allow to the central banks to react in a flexible and rapid way to the processes happening in our association. So if we see that there is a lack of investment, we could issue the necessary digital instruments. If there is a accession of it, we could take something from it. So this is an instrument that can be easily created. We just need to agree about the directions of its development and the investments into the countries or projects. I think, and our experts suggested, it would be very interesting for those countries who are going to create this instrument, as well as for those who are going to use it. Meaning that the developing markets of Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia need this investment. If we find good, promising, common projects, invest in them, and then receive the return on this, on the work of these projects, the instrument is going to be very reliable and promising. That is why we're interested in attracting the widest circle of our friends and those of like mind. This also goes for one of our promising partners as Azerbaijan.
Follow up. Recently, Mr. Trump haven't made it to its White House. You may not know that we have our own White House where we make good decisions, whereas the White House in Washington is a place where some different decisions are made. Now, he said that if BRICS members do not use the dollar, he would introduce 100% duties against all these countries. So this is the first threat against states, the first threat of this kind. Previously, the Americans went after individual banks or companies, but that was a first, stating that the states would be punished and their products would be subject to 100% duties. This is a first from the president-elect. Now, we know that Americans are very sensitive about this because the strength of America is in its dollar. And this is where money is invested. So, but for the dollar, with its positions, the American economy will go under with its huge debt. And we know the dollars create huge revenues for banks. Now, how do you assess this step of the president-elect? Whether this would undermine the trust in the U.S., in their economy, in their financial system, whether this would make BRICS countries and other countries to flee from dollar even faster, or in trying to create some new formats and new approaches.
First of all, I'll agree that the use of dollar as a world currency gives the US a lot of money. In the last 10 years, they received $10 trillion, just like that, from the skies, for the fact that the dollar is used as the reserve currency on the basis of placement in their banks. $10 trillion. It means that they consume more than they produce, which is very important. In fact, thanks to the dollar, the US continue to exploit other economies of the world for their own benefit. Many people do not think about it, but this is important, and I'll agree with you on that. The second thing, you said that the President-elect Trump threatened that those who will not use dollar will introduce duties or sanctions. As I understand, he didn't say it like that. I understand that when we speak about the US, it provokes some certain reaction. Well, as far as according to what I've seen, well, I don't have much time to see, to watch, but I said that if someone wants to restrict the use of dollar, they will react. This is not the same. One thing is to prohibit the use of dollar, and the other thing is not to use it. These are different things. And the third, President-elect hasn't governed the country, has not been in the White House for 4 years. And there were certain changes in the economy, in the world economy, during this time, and as well as in the American economy. His opponents, his successors, did a lot to undermine the fundamental basis of dollar as a international reserve currency. They did it themselves with their own hands, using dollar as an instrument of political or even military fight to inflict damage on other countries, because the government of the US considers that their opponents, for instance, against us, they started introducing restrictions. The share of the US in the world economy is reducing, and it means that the influence of dollar on world economic processes is also reducing. That is why, quite naturally, we see processes with the use of other instruments. For instance, Bitcoin. Who can prohibit the use of it? No one. Or the use of other electronic ways of settlements. No one can ban the use of them because these are new technologies. Anything can happen with dollar. These instruments will continue developing because everyone will try to reduce costs and to make these instruments more reliable. This is inevitable. And dollar has nothing to do with it. But if we see that the use of dollar is reduced if they do it themselves, they will undermine the basis of their own economic dominance. This is obvious, and I absolutely agree with you on that. We never refused to use dollar. We were denied the use of it. As we say that we fight for something, and then this results in problems. And now we have to think what to do next. This comes from the fact that they are too confident of themselves, and this is unacceptable. We need to understand the processes that are happening in the world. Based on that understanding, we should establish our policy, including on the international level. This is happening in a very natural way. Even the countries that are allies of the US reduce their gold and currency reserves in dollars and in euros. In the last 10 years, the reduction was around 13%. Well, this is a big figure. And this is happening naturally. No one will be able to undo these processes with the use of sanctions or using force that are destructive for the economy. Those who do it, and especially for those who do it.
Very much. I hope that when you talk to him, you will explain this to him. Look, Mr. Trump is a person who doesn't need any advice or recommendations. Okay, thank you. Who goes next? Sector 4, please. Go ahead. Here's the mic. Mr. President, good evening. Distinguished colleagues, I represent Yitsindao, a Chinese company. It's a state multi-purpose conglomerate. I'd like to ask you, recently, the Central Bank of Russia has lost about 1/2 of its gold and currency reserves because they've been blocked. Yet, it doesn't seem to have resulted in any serious implications. So it appears that the reserves are not needed. So why accumulate those reserves?
Thank you for your question. You know, this is a logical question. Why to accumulate these reserves if they can be stolen so easily? Well, China has big gold and currency reserves in securities in the US. We see what is happening. They're being reduced gradually. Why to accumulate them if they can be lost so easily? No one thought about that before, if that can be done so easily. Everyone thought that those people who make decisions in economy are very conservative and understand their own risks if they undermine these international legal norms in this sphere. However, the US and the Europeans decided to do that. They blocked these assets, but they haven't stolen it. They haven't made the last step. From our side, we had to take the respective measures. To use the so-called C accounts to send the dividends of the companies that work in our country there. We are not really delighted about this because we had to do it. We were forced to do it. Around $200 billion that are being in Europe, 100 billion, around $100 billion. Well, in total, $300 billion. There are more in Europe than in the US. Well, as for the taking of these assets and using them, they haven't done it yet. Why? This is the instrument to reduce risks if there are changes in the financial market, when there are exceeding incomes and the state takes this income. When there is less income, then the state can use this money to implement its obligations in the economy and the social sphere. So this is the instrument of alleviation, and we use this instrument. Well, this is an objective question, what to do with this money And in general, the countries who did this, not to avoid this Dutch disease, and when the state does not understand the risks and starts to use this money, and the inflation grows and very sharply because the economy does not generate enough goods inside the country that are produced in the country, so that the money that is in the economy would correspond to it, and we see as a result the hyperinflation. Of course, we understood that this is not a very reliable way, so where we're going to invest in education, in science, in new technologies, in real estate. This is what our Chinese partners do, and our friends. They invest in the fields of in mineral resources. So these material assets are more reliable than financial instruments of other countries. And as we see, they use these instruments for their political goals. I've said it already. I think that they use it to their own detriment, but this is their own choice. They can do whatever they want, and we need to do what is needed to ensure our own interests. And I think that investment in technologies, in education, in science, in logistics is the most reliable investment.
Very much. Next question, please. Right. Good evening, Mr. President.
The North
As for the development of new logistic routes, this is an inevitable process because we see the growth of the economy, commercial exchange. It is stimulated by the fact that we are being created problems by other countries in this sphere. That is why we have to find new routes, and we do it. We find these routes. In any case, this is inevitable because we see the growth of interchange of goods, and the number of routes is actually restricted, and we see more risks, and their capacity is also restricted. If we're speaking about Suez Canal, its capacity is reduced, and because the economy of a friendly country, Egypt, is suffering from it. They have lost a lot, the revenues of its budget for 1/3. It's first of all related to the geopolitical risks. The US is very active and aggressive in the Middle East region. It results in a response of the forces in this region. The economy suffers, as well as the logistic routes. Those who sell, those who transfer these goods are doing it around Africa. Because of this, but not only because of this, well, the volume of trade is increasing. There is growing interest to such routes as the Northern Sea route. It's along the Russian shores in the Arctic. We have already exceeded the volume of transportation that we had in the Soviet times, and it is going to grow. We have a whole program of building of icebreakers, and there is no such number of icebreakers all over the world. We have already 7 nuclear icebreakers, 24 ordinary icebreakers. We also have plans to continue building such ships. The climate is changing. We have more days for the ships to come through this route. And we see that many countries are interested. First of all, our Asian partners, India, China, many others. They want to use this route and to work along this route. We have a program to develop ports in this region, ways to approach the ports. That is why it is important to develop the north-south corridor. It is already functioning, and the volume of transportation along this corridor is constantly increasing. We use vehicles and railways to transport goods. As for the plans with our Iranian friends, I'm sure you know 160 kilometers need to be built, and we are going to do this between Resht and Astara. We have a document, and we agreed on many issues, but there are several technical issues that we have to solve with our Iranian friends, and they should be solved on the Iranian part. To build railways along the territories that must be free to implement such projects. There are some difficulties, but we understand that if we want to reach Indian Ocean, Persian Gulf, it is very interesting from the economic point of view for those who sell their goods, because from the Baltic, from the St. Petersburg, we can send the goods in a seamless way to this region. So this will be interesting for those in the north and for those in the south. This is what our Indian friends also mentioned. I'm sure these projects will be implemented. We will need investment, but we have counted them. We understand how much we'll spend on it. We have resources for it. Of course, we are interested in attracting more participants to these projects, investors. Many investors are interested in it because it will minimize geopolitical risks, creates conditions for stable work. As for the bilateral relations, the trade and economic relations are sustainable and solid. The growth of trade turnover this year will be very good, I'm sure. We have big projects in logistics, and we have just spoken about it in energy, in industrial cooperation, in ensuring security as well. That is why the bilateral work has good prospects. You also mentioned the European Economic Union. We have signed an agreement about the free trade zone. I think that Iranian leadership showed interest in working more closely with the EAEU as an observer. We welcome such an initiative and will do it. We also finalized an agreement, a fundamental agreement, that will regulate all the issues related to our cooperation in the future, and I hope that during the visit of the President of Iran to Russia, we'll sign it.
Next question, please. Distinguished Mr. President, good evening. I'm Hen Shu. I'm the founder of the Russian-Chinese digital trade platform, TIFO. This year, we celebrated 31 years since I've been living and working between two countries, Russia and China. And over the period, I could see with my own eyes how you, with your will and stamina, help create a modern Russia, a new Russia. So on behalf of the Chinese business, I would like to express our deep respect to you.
Thank you.
I got a question. It's not a very tricky question. It's an easy question. Now, on the streets, we see more and more new Chinese cars, vehicles, but the majority of those vehicles are supplied from Russia as is. Now, my question is, do you plan to either partially or fully localize the manufacturing of Chinese vehicles in Russia, so that the cooperation between Russia and China would be based not only on trade but also on industry? Thank you.
Well, yes, indeed. Our Chinese friends and us began cooperation in automobile industry not yesterday, but back in 2015, or even prior to that we had discussions. But in 2015 we established first manufacturing sites in Tula and Kaluga regions. But that has or had to do not with the fact that the German manufacturers wanted to leave us, but you know, the Chinese car manufacturers are now making cars and vehicles better and cheaper than those of Europe. So the measures to fight the Chinese car manufacturing sector of Europe and other markets, we believe, are totally wrong and inappropriate and damaging for the global car manufacturing industry. They will not yield any political benefits because they will inevitably reduce the competitiveness of those producers with whom China has been competing. So the Chinese items and vehicles have become cheaper and higher in quality. Our Chinese friends have been able to attract the most promising and the best professionals, including coming from the nations that had a lead in the global automotive industry. And the Chinese have been able, with their help, to establish and create and design competitive products. But like any other country, like any economy in the world, we want to see the maximum level of localization so that the components of vehicles are produced domestically at our manufacturing sites. For that, a very well-known instrument of special investment contract has been around for long, and the support from the government is in direct relationship with the level of localization. So I will not go into detail with respect to how many benefits you may receive and what the rate of localization should be. These are minor details, but the work is ongoing, and we have been cooperating in this vein with our Chinese friends, and everybody has a favorable attitude to that, but it's about the pace and the volume of governmental support. But actually, we will come to terms with our Chinese friends as we do come to terms in other areas. And I'd like to now congratulate the Chinese manufacturers on the wonderful, brilliant results in the automobile sector.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Next question, Sector 8, please. Yeah, Sector 8, please, go ahead.
Russia has virtually adapted to this situation. Definitely we had an outflow of foreign investments. It was obvious, and we heeded that. But actually, we have had a growth in fixed investments, and I have mentioned that. Because inter alia new brands emerge, and we have been supportive of our local domestic manufacturers and producers. It came as a surprise for those who imposed restrictions in economic cooperation on us, and they thought that manufacturing sites would close down and thousands of people would be made redundant, and our unemployment is 2.4% only, and we have a tight labor market, and actually making sure the investment process flows smoothly is something that we should do, and we have done that. And investment inflows from friendly countries have risen considerably, and you cannot cut those channels off because that is guarded by the economic interests, not political considerations. And this is what we've been witnessing. And I'm sure that those who wanted to hinder us regret the previously made decisions, that they are dysfunctional, and now those decision makers just lack flexibility to adjust their positions. But actually our government and the central bank, apart from providing the context for sound investment and capital preservation, have also come up with developmental blueprints of national development programs and plans and goals, and we have such projects in place, and we try to single out the high-tech industries for targeted support. 8.1% is the growth in processing industries of ours. This is a testimony of the efficiency, and that works not only in the military and defense, but generally in the economy. So we have provided liquidity to the financial institutions to favor growth, and actually there are some issues related to the policy rate of 21%, but still the lending by Russian banks to the economic actors and agents have still been growing, and they are now growing to date. We can talk about issues and problems, but investments are on the rise, and we've been able to do so inter alia because at the initial stage we guaranteed an uninterrupted operation of Russian national financial institutions. So it is a well-known toolkit, and you can familiarize yourselves with it, and we've been applying all these measures to attain the results you have now mentioned, and I confirm that it is true.
We've been working for about an hour and a half. Let's take two more questions. Who is bold enough?
People around.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. President.
Why are they speaking German in Germany? They were not a colony. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, in particular for the final part of your statement, for the final comment, as regards Nigeria, it is one of the biggest economies, rapidly developing, with very good prospects in Nigeria. So the economy has been diversifying, and we welcome that. We are happy for you, and we are sure your country will develop equally rapidly in future. As regards the growth in bilateral trade, I just repeat what I said before. The African continent has a lot of promise in terms of development. You know about all the problems existent in Africa, but the prospects are brilliant. And these are not our opinions and assessments. They belong to the global expert community, including the Western experts. Many friends of mine from Germany and other European nations tell me that they also want to turn to the African continent and be more active there. The urbanization level and rates there are lower than the global ones. The global one stands at 65. In Russia, the urbanization rate is 75, as well as in Asia. And the urbanization will keep growing. The pace of population increase in Africa are huge. So they will catch up in terms of living standards because of that rapid growth, and modern means of economic activities will be applied, and tools and technological solutions will be applied. This definitely will guarantee the natural basis for our cooperation with Africa. And besides, apart from other things, Africa geographically is remote, but is very close to us in spirit, because very courageous, free-loving nations live in Africa that cherish their sovereignty and want to maintain it, and will take decisions and make decisions building on their own interests. And Africa is a reliable partner in this respect, and we have a lot in common with Africa and African people. Just recall the emancipation and the struggle for independence. There was not a single thing that divided us with the peoples of Africa. but still we have a lot of things that unite us, and we rejoice over the prospects of the development of African continent. We'll do our utmost to raise the level of interaction. The trade is not as great as we want it to be, around 25 billion USD, but the prospects are upbeat. And actually, we know that 2 summits were held with African. We felt the attitudes and the resolve of the African leaders. They haven't been begging or asking anything from us. They just speak of mutually advantageous cooperation that should be established, and we will act in this vein. We will come up with new tools. Now a special foundation to develop cooperation with Africa will be established. I'm sure that both bilaterally and working with different African integration groups, we will step up our efforts and our work. I'm sure the result will be good.
Thank you very much. Next question, please. Mr. Kostin, thank you very much. Vladimir Vladimirovich, good evening. I was born in Turkey. I studied in Turkey, but over the past 15 years, I've been living and working in Russia. My company is called Baltic Destroy Alliance. Here's my question. There are many ways in the world to deal with inflation, all the way from ignoring the fact down to very strict regulation, price regulation. In Russia, this is a prerogative of a fairly independent central bank. I wonder if you could explain the reasons as to why Russia chose this model to manage inflation. You're from Turkey, right? Okay, yes. I understand why you're concerned with inflation.
Yes, indeed. The rate of inflation in Turkey is around 80%, quite a high one. Well, it fluctuates around 80%. Lower. Is it lower? Lower than 50? Good, good. Congratulations. Not long ago it was at 80. It stood at 80. Now it's at 50. Actually, it's good progress, good headway, and the pace of reduction is high. So I congratulate the financial authorities of Turkey with this good result, because you had it at 80, now it's 50. Good. With respect to how the work is being done in Russia, well, in conformity with the Russian legislation, the central bank has its own scope, not overlapping with the scope of the federal government in fight against inflation and regulation. So the main goal, the main mission is vested with the to fight inflation is vested with the regulator, which is our central bank, and you know that our inflation has risen slightly at 8.8, and now it has increased versus last year. It was at 7.5, now it's 8.8. This is why the central bank had to raise the policy rate up to 21%. We hear a lot of criticism, lots of criticism, saying that that would subvert and suppress development. Other experts believe it's inevitable, and some people say that 21% of the policy rate versus 8.8% of inflation is too big a difference. I will not give any assessments whether it's good or bad, but I just want to say that there are some difficulties for the real sector. It's fraught with some difficulties for the real sector. But actually, the real sector lending goes on. There are both advantages and drawbacks with respect to people putting their money on deposits and getting interest income. On the one hand, it's good. The deposit base has gone up and the incomes of people from the deposit interests have been growing and rising. It's good, but not everybody has deposits at banks. And, those people who don't have accounts at banks experience a great deal of a burden because of the inflation. These are the lower income strata of the society and brackets of the society. So the prices keep growing, but these people don't have deposits and they don't receive any additional incomes. And probably there are lots of such people, or the majority of these people, versus those who have deposits. And we should think it over also now with respect to the production part. Yes, indeed. I said it in my presentation, and I now repeat that. Loans to the industrial and manufacturing sector, as well as investments, are ongoing. But the most important point here, the most important tool to fight inflation is, after all, providing the sufficient supply of goods and services consumed in the economy. And this is a very important point to mention. And definitely we should strike a proper balance between the development of our economy and the inflow of supply of goods and services in the necessary volume and at a good price. And the inflation would be declining to the needed target parameter, which is 4%. By a certain year, I hope we will be able to attain that. But the main thing is to have a high qualified and joint work between the central bank and the government, despite the fact that their functions, their powers in the legislation are separated, and under the law the central bank is independent, and we will work in this vein, in this paradigm. We will not mingle the scope of the regulator and the powers of the government. And my task, as I see it, is to try to guide them towards working in concert to strike a proper balance, find a happy medium in the sphere of lending and finance. And a lot hinges on the government, because when the policy rate goes up, many of the economic operators face certain known difficulties, and the government should define the priorities, be clear about the priorities for the economic sovereignty and growth. And there is a toolkit for the government to resort to provide for the strategic interests of the Russian economy and its development. The Industry Development Fund and others are existent that receive preferential lending rates. So the toolkit of the instruments used by the central bank and the toolkit used by the government to maintain the economic growth and technological sovereignty and development, we need them to be in alignment, and for that joint work is needed between the regulator, which is central bank, and the government. Until now we managed to strike this proper balance, and I hope that in near future we will act in this very same vein, and the final outcome will be maintaining a good pace of economic growth and restraining inflation.
To thank all the participants of this forum. I would like to thank our speakers at our morning session, Mr. Rishkin, Madam Nabiulna. Oh, you've got the mic, please.
你好。
and all of a sudden interpretation ceased as well. Could somebody start the interpretation? I work at the Greenwood International Center in Moscow. Mr. President, I've been working for the center for 20 years. I remember that back in 2018, I took part in the Eastern Economic Forum. Back then, I listened to your presentation, and at that time, I also had a chance to communicate, and now I have this wonderful opportunity to interact with you. Over the past 25 years, our Greenwood Center has been working with 24 countries, more than 100 companies, including companies from Turkey, more than 180 Chinese companies who developed their relations with Russia based on my center. Now we reach agreements, and we pay a lot of attention to Chinese car manufacturing and car manufacturing companies. I'm referring to the leading Chinese brands, and I'd like to take this opportunity and invite you to come to Greenwood Park and to talk to us, to exchange opinions. Should you have this chance, we'd be happy to welcome you so that you could discuss with us some specific issues in a very friendly atmosphere. Your support, your attention are truly very important. And we'd like to know how, going forward, Russia is going to improve its investment climate, how it's going to adjust its course in our area of activity. We'd appreciate your opinion on that.
Have a number of tools, a toolkit to help maintain a favorable atmosphere for prospective investors, and the guarantee of preservation of the investments and receiving the return are there, and these are the two main things, and we will keep following up on these, and all things that have been done in developing our trade and economic ties with China have good outcomes, and they are self-evident. The volume of mutual trade that we are now having between Russia and China, we never had it in our history, 240 billion USD, which is the best proof and testimony of the fact that the measures applied by two countries in China with respect to Russian economic actors and in Russia for Chinese companies are efficient. We keep monitoring and analyzing everything happening there, and definitely this is the merit of the governments of China and Russia, because they keep track of the developments. The main point is the settlement. The main issue is the settlements. One, it's no secret, and we know what it was caused by. But actually, 90% of our trade is denominated in national currencies of ours, in the RMB and the ruble, and we will use digital and electronic capabilities of central banks now. Our central banks are pursuing active work, and apart from that, the investment platform of BRICS and many other tools will be used by us so that our cooperation is safe, reliable, and would create a lot of prospects for future development. Thank you for this proposal to visit your structure. You said you would provide a good atmosphere for the discussions. I know how it's going to look like. One day I will go there. This side, please. This flank, please. And this will be the final. You choose. On this, someone has risen.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. President. Yes, I'm Change, and for more than 10 years, I've been working and living in Russia. I used to work for the oil sector and manufacturing sector. And for the first time, I saw you up close and personal in the city of Kaluga. It was like 15 years ago. Currently, I am an official trade representative of the Jiangsu province of China in Russia. As you may be aware, interregional cooperation is crucial for economic development. And my question is about visas. What kind of measures could be made by Russia in the near future, in the coming years, to simplify international travel, in particular for business purposes, for touristic purposes, for studying? And what is Russia's policy in terms of supporting family members of foreigners working in Russia on long tours, including minors, when they have to get visas and they have to get admitted to educational institutions? And I also would like to invite you to visit Jiangxi province of China. You know, we have a saying in China: there is paradise in the skies, and there is Jiangxi on the ground. So we're waiting for you. And by the way, this is what I've just said. So there is paradise in the sky, and there is Jiangxi on the earth.
Thank you very much. It is an important question relating to those individuals who have been pursuing a practical interaction between Russia and the PRC. Such people as you attain the results that I have mentioned. And there are several points you mentioned, the visa support, and we've been doing that, and all these questions are resolved upon the principles of reciprocity in all countries. But with our Chinese friends, we are more advanced than with others, and we'll keep acting in this vein. The second point, which is also important, I'm in agreement with you here either. It's about regional cooperation, and the volume of interaction between the regions of Russia and the regions of China keeps increasing, and this is natural because people know each other personally. They visit each other and they know what the economic situation in those regions is, and they see potential for development. All the heads of Russian regions bordering on China and on the respective provinces in China, and even not bordering but pursuing regional cooperation, they confirm that. So it is actually very important to provide the necessary context and the conditions for people who have been promoting the mutual interest on both sides, and definitely cater to their family members. But I want to note that the family members of international workers living permanently in Russia have a right to study at Russian educational establishments, and family members also can have a job. They have a right to get a job. Well, probably we should keep analyzing what has been happening and seek and find additional opportunities to support such individuals who have a professional perspective on that, because they deal with that on a day-to-day basis. This is their bread and butter. And you have mentioned the Chinese saying about Jiangsu province, and I also recall another proverb: the higher you nest, the farther you see. So you are nested quite high, and you can see these problems well enough. I've made notes, jotted down things, and the very final question from here. Yes, we'll pass the mic over there. Please stand up. No, you just can stop that. It will not be over.
I'm
Very good idea and a proposal. We've been trying to do that, and as you have flagged it, I just would ask colleagues responsible for the BRICS cooperation to analyze the situation on the main areas of cooperation, and we will definitely draw the attention of the Brazilian colleagues who will chair BRICS next year. For us, it is of special relevance because as part of the import substitution program, we see the advent of very many new Russian brands substituting the brands by Western partners that voluntarily left our markets, departed from our market, and our local manufacturers are quite successful, not only in consumer goods but also IT and high-tech vendors, and in agriculture too. The number of our manufacturers and agricultural producers, keeps growing. In 1988, the USSR imported grains to the amount of $35 billion, and last year we exported grains to the tune of $66 billion, and to a large extent that is the merit of our farmers and producers in all the sectors of the Russian Federation, including in high-tech ones. There is an acute need to expand the opportunities to sell and export their products. I know that Prime Minister Modi has a similar program, Make in India, and this is a very similar program to ours, and we would be ready to place our manufacturing sites in India. Also, the biggest investment in the Indian economy to the tune of $20 billion by Rosneft happened not long ago, and the Prime Minister of India and the government of India have been creating stable conditions, and this is because the Indian leadership has been pursuing India comes first policy, and we believe that investments in India are profitable. Thank you very much. We are thankful to you. We'll work it through. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank the organizers. Thank you, everybody.